Hello, everybody. Welcome,
Hi.
welcome. So excited to have these three lovely ladies here, and I'm so happy you're all here for Let's Chat on Sunday, where we just kind of take a break from the craziness of the week and have a conversation about some spiritual stuff and cleanse our palate kind of from the week. I wanted to introduce to you who is with me today, though, because these are three very wonderful ladies that have come on to talk today about tools and spiritual tools, metaphysical tools that you can use to get answers for yourself or for your loved ones. If you're a reader or you're just reading for yourself. So I'm just gonna kind of go in alphabetical order here, so we can have some order to this, and hopefully I can get through this without stumbling all over myself. But okay, so Andrea is the creator and host of the YouTube channel Lilac Lanteren and a light worker. She's been a psychic her whole life, which I can't imagine that. I mean, yeah, that's a lot. She receives information different ways through dreams, images, visions, senses. She's also a card creator. And how many decks do you have? Do you have 2 or 3?
I have 3 right now on the go.
Gosh. Wow, good for you. So she is so she's an amazing card creator, and 3 decks so far, I'll say. Maybe there's other ones in the works. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
And I want to tell you about Lori. Lori is the creator and host of the YouTube channel Way of Positive Change, and she's a psychic tarot reader. She shares intuitive insights and predictions on political topics and current events, future events. And she started reading psychic readings in 1990, which, wow, that's a long time, Lori, connecting with people worldwide. And I can tell you, too, I always have her on to talk about finance and stuff. She's great with money stuff and that kind of thing, which is amazing. I don't feel like I'm that great at that, so that's always great. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
And Karin Schroeder she's new to the channel, so this is exciting. She has been doing readings professionally and speaking about astrology for over 30 years. She trained the professional astrology program at the Temple of Kriya. Is it Kriya Yoga?
Kriya Yoga. Mm-hmm.
Kriya Yoga in Chicago, and spent time learning spiritual astrology at the feet of Shelley Trimmer, a disciple of
Paramahansa Yogananda. Yeah.
Yogananda. Okay. And she uses humor and compassion, and her readings support empowerment and personal growth by looking at the bigger picture and that you might be holding back and encouraging you to be your best self. So welcome, Karin.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I thought we'd kind of go in alphabetical order again and talk about the tool that you use and what you love about it, how you kind of came to it, and what drew you into it and what you love about it. And Andrea, I know that you use cards, and I know that, so you can talk about the cards, but I also wanted to talk about the fact that you have really introduced the pendulum into so many of your readings. So I wanted you to talk about that as well. So take it away.
Me too. Yeah. So since I was a kid, I've been psychic, knowing things, sensing things, dreaming things, things coming true. As I grew older, I was able to read people, like look at them and just kind of know about them without wondering. Like, it just was so easy for me. And then images are a big thing. I could flip through a magazine and a picture would pop out at me and I'd get a premonition about something, right? Mm-hmm. So all these different things were happening in my life. I knew I was psychic, but I never really focused on it in a sense of like I do now reading on the channel. So I started using cards as a way to communicate, right? Because you can get the answers in here, but sometimes it helps to see it in the cards or with your pendulum, right? Because it's using all your senses as well.
And I won't interrupt anymore, but I just want to ask you real quick. So you're able to kind of do this with yourself first. So you're getting images, getting things. So, and what made you reach out to do a tool? Was it to organize it for yourself too? Or so you could kind of make sense of it? Or was it to get a bigger, more nuanced picture?
I think that's probably it, a bigger, more nuanced picture. And I had no idea I was going to do a YouTube channel, a tarot card reader, but I was, we were all home during 2020, and I found the community, and I started watching the videos, and I'm like, oh, yes, I can do that. That's because I'm very image driven. So I have tons of decks, but I have no idea what the cards traditionally mean. I just go with, like, I'm very image driven. So,
Okay.
What is this one? The Knight of Pentacles. I don't know
All right.
the image and what it tells me, like that man's in secret, and, these kind of, or I use odd decks and that have images, the blender, and then there's two hurricanes here, and it's like, what does it tell? What is this image saying to me in the midst of the story I'm reading on? So whether it's political or personal reading, and every time I look at this card, it could mean something else depending on the subject matter I'm reading, because it's hitting my senses. It's hitting me visually, and my other senses are also activated. I might be hearing something or feeling something as I'm reading. So that's one thing in your toolbox, is to be open to all your senses with whatever you're using, right? It's not just one thing. I think it's, all of your antennas up and receiving information is a good thing.
That's great. Yeah, it's such a great point. Yeah. And I think that people too don't realize, and you may find this too, Lori, that you can read the cards intuitively. If you're drawn to a deck and you love it, it loves you back in a way, right? You have that relationship with it and you build that, and you can read them intuitively, right?
Yeah, find decks that work for you and images that work for you, or colors or words. Everyone is different. I don't think
Right.
anyone, no two people are the same in how they read. So I was doing that, and okay, great, that's going great. And about a year ago or so, I heard, pick up your pendulum. So I bought this pendulum years ago and never used it. Was always looking for one, couldn't find one. One day I found this, and I was like, this is the one. And I have used it every single day, not on YouTube so much. I mean, I do when I read, but in my personal life at home, I'm asking all kinds of things. Who built the pyramids? What's going on with the weather? How am I doing? Like, whatever. It might be any kind of question.
You shot JFK. Have you gotten to that?
And it took a while, but like I really got, I'm very connected to it now. Like I said, it's like if someone was doing sign language, reading sign language, it's just a different language.
Right.
Reading it. So I can tell its nuances now when it's moving, and how it moves. And it's just become an extension of me. And that's really exciting. Like, that's just been like amazing.
So again, I'm going to stop you. I said I wouldn't, but I'm going to. I have to ask you because, and I don't think this myself, but I thought some people might hear this and think, okay, you got the cards where it's very nuanced. It's giving you this really, detailed story, and to introduce a tool like the pendulum, for somebody who doesn't know these tools, might think, oh, that's like going backwards, because that's just a yes and no tool. That's not, and it's one that people can start with, because it's just yes and no. But explain what it brought to the readings that the cards weren't doing, or what it has enhanced for you.
Well, it's gone past yes and no for me. So
okay, and what way can you show what you mean by that?
Well, I'm moving my hands of doing this, so this is not me getting it from above right now. But sometimes it'll move in a circle, or it might start going, like pointing in, like it'll start moving like this in a direction, trying to tell me something. And like I said, I've had so many conversations with it now. I know I'm getting, I'm really starting to understand what it means. So it does all kinds, and sometimes it'll just stand there and go brrr.
Wow.
Go in a big, big circle. So it's just,
Right.
and I just keep learning with it, and it's spectacular. It's also, while I shuffle the cards and put them down, this to me is literally a direct connection. So, and to me, I know this might sound crazy to a lot of people, but I believe I've connected to the creator. So I will talk to the creator. I've also connected to Archangel Michael, and I can also connect to other souls.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, was who is making, who do you talk to make it move? Yeah. Okay. Good.
Mostly my understanding is it is the creator, and you can say whatever that is consciousness, that is the life force, that is whatever it is. I think if you're going to pick one up, just don't go picking it up thinking it's easy breezy. You need to make sure you're connected to the right thing. You don't want to connect into anything wrong, right? You just want to make sure you are connected and setting yourself up for success, making sure you have a safe place, asking to speak to positive energy. Like, just don't pick one up and decide without looking into it, right? Because you don't want to. Same with the cards. Like, whenever you're using any tool, make sure you're connected to the right things. You don't want to pull in any negative energy. And to do that,
do you say a prayer? Oh, I was going to say, do you say a protective prayer?
Yeah, I do every morning, and then when I'm done readings, I always cleanse everything verbally. I used to cleanse it with sage and stuff and candles, but now I do it verbally. And ways you can get really, I'd say, to rewind the tape even way back is you got to get your frequency right. So that can be with crystals. I've been drawn to crystals since I was a kid, like just collecting and buying them since I was a child. You want to get your frequency high and connected to the good things, right? And then start using the tools, whether it's cards or pendulums, whatever it is you're going to use. Crystals have their own frequency. And that frequency can affect you in good ways, right? So you want to surround yourself, like clear quartz is a great one. That's your basic one. Selenite's really good for the high, connecting high. Amethyst, third eye connection. So you can just start with those three, or just even the clear quartz crystal, but make sure you're getting a real clear quartz.
Right.
Not a fake one. And you get your vibration going, right? And you also have to be coming from a place of purity, right? So you don't want to be asking something out of vengeance or hatred or anything like that. You want to be of loving spirit and have loving energy around you, and then connect. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm glad you talked about your own frequency, because I would think too, with the pendulum especially, it really is an extension of you. I mean, it's in your hand, right? And you're holding it the whole time. It's not like the cards where you kind of put them out of your hands and lay them in front of you.
Yeah.
Even though they do carry your energy, it's a little bit different with the pendulum, isn't it?
Yeah, I've tried to figure out how it's working, and I don't have all the answers yet, but I think it's somehow using my vibrational energy field, and then like the creator is using my field of energy to move it. I don't know if that's right, but I think it's kind of right. Because it's not so much the string moving as in everything is moving.
Yeah, it's interesting too. And I always tell people, don't worry about if your hand might move a little bit, because it's working through you.
Yes.
And when I have a video I put up to show this, because as soon as I picked up my dowsing rods, I picked them up and put them in front of me. You see an orb shoot across the room and go into my head. So you know that there's something going on where you're being, there's using your whole being along with the tool.
You become the tool.
Right, exactly.
The tool. And
exactly.
And it's just like you said, the dowsing rods. So I bought a set and it didn't work for me. Now I think I bought like the wrong kind, or maybe I'm just not tuned into it.
Right.
And I had this pendulum for years in my collection, never using it. Maybe it took that long to get into my frequency. I don't know. But frequency and crystals play a big role. And I think if you cleanse yourself, if you keep your body and mind in a way that can receive information, that's going to be a lot easier. If you drink a lot of alcohol or drink a lot of coffee or have a lot of rage, I don't think that energy field is going to get you lined into the greater frequency.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's like we said, especially with something like the pendulum or something you're actually holding the whole time. I always think that's so important with something like that. Well, thanks, Andrea. And we'll keep talking about this. But Lori, what drew you to? I know you're fantastic with the cards. So what drew you to the cards, and what do you love about them?
I had dreams when I was a child, and I kept having them. And eventually, I would see snippets in my dream of an event then I would be living through, like within the next 3 weeks or so.
Wow.
So I couldn't understand why that was happening. And by this time, now I'm 18 years old, and I couldn't understand why it was happening. And so I went to my parents, went to my grandparents. I asked everybody, do you know what this is about? Do you know why this is happening? What can I read? And nobody had any answers for me. So I went to a big metaphysical store here in Lee County, which I ended up managing when I was 34, which is pretty funny.
Oh, fun.
But so I met the owner, Mary Alice, and she helped me understand that I was both astral traveling and I was seeing the future in my dreams. And so it was a big bookstore, and I just started with this book and this book and this book. And then I went down this aisle and went over this way on the shelf and then over here. And I tried this and this. And so then I settled on the tarot. And she showed me the Rider-Waite, which is one of the original decks. And we didn't have the internet, so I read literally every book of every deck creator and the Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley and all of them. So I read everything I could get my hands on. And they have the 12 of the major arcana cards have the 12 astrological signs affixed to them. Then I started to learn the 12 house astrological spread, so I can see what's going on in every department of your life, from your health to your best friend to your work to your finances. And so it just sort of took off, and then I just kept going to bookstores. I'd go visit my brother in Seattle, and they have some of the best old bookstores and books that were out of print, and studied and studied and studied, and then started really becoming friends with Mary Alice. And then as I really started reading, then I started reading at that store and doing the psychic fairs there, and just blossomed from there. And my gifts kept getting stronger.
And I'm going to interrupt you too, Lori. So get ready, Karin. So I wanted to ask you, because you kind of glide past this, but you clearly, you clearly have a really strong spiritual side, but it sounds like you have a really strong analytical side too, because it sounds like you were just reading everything and finding everything, and it really needed to make sense to you on a lot of levels. And so but how did you go from, because I think a lot of people find it hard to move out of this learning, and really interested in it, to reading for other people. Because it may have been a natural, jump, but I think a lot of people find that really hard to move from, because I will talk to people in readings, and their guides are clearly saying, it's time to get out there. You need to stop just learning and stop taking classes. You need to get out there and do. So what was that transition like for you in reading just for yourself and for your own entertainment, and then reading for other people?
That's a great question. When I started using the 12 house astrological spread, the archetypes and the pips and the royals started to interact with each other in front of me, because they face each other, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they look up towards another card in placement. And very much like you do when you doodle or you draw, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're engaging your right brain, but you're also giving something of your rational sense left brain to look at.
Right.
So you're distracting using that left side so that the right side intuition can come in,
Mm-hmm.
and you can then see things on the screen in front and hear. And so I would look down at the cards more than I would at the person. And that way, if I was focusing on the cards and being in front of them, I could maybe hear, you know, for instance, I read for this young lady and her dad had passed, and I could hear him say, would you tell her that she doesn't have to put ketchup on everything? You know, so the voice can, so when you're studying or you're doodling, then the voice can come through, or the picture can come in. And I just started a little bit with friends, and Mary Alice just really sort of pushed me, get started, just like your guide said, get started.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did.
Wow. And so, and what is it that you, I mean, clearly there was a connection there with you and the cards, but do you like it because they do speak to you in a specific way? And it sounds like it's kind of a mixture of, you know, I mean, clearly you know what the meanings are, but is it when you're doing a reading, is it their relationship to each other at that point that you kind of use your intuitive skills to look at and make sense of?
Yes, and it's very much a tool, just like when you doodle. So
Right.
they come alive. They really do come alive for me.
They
And
start to
sometimes
tell a story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. Yes, they tell a story. They connect and interact with each other. And so I just focus on that. And sometimes I'll hear songs like you do too, or you get movie pictures or television shows, or same thing. And if sometimes I have an agreement, and I teach people in tarot class, because I teach Reiki and I teach tarot, that you know, you can make agreements with your guides. So if you don't want to see anything like bloody, or you don't want to see any death, so they won't show that to me. So if somebody died, say somebody's grandfather died violently in a war, they'll just show me, I'll see my own grandfather, and I'll say, well, this is your grandfather here.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't show me that. So I always help students learn that you can make an agreement with your guides. And if my interpretation of a card doesn't match your interpretation of cards, you just make that clear to your spiritual guide or your guardian angel that's guiding you do the readings for each person.
Wow. So, well, that's so interesting. And then do you use, I noticed that you mostly use the Rider-Waite deck. Do you use other cards as well?
I do. I've studied a lot of different decks, but I do like the Druid Craft, and I like the Mythic deck.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I use them sometimes, especially in teaching. I'll point out the different art work, or the different meanings with different deck creators.
Right.
And I always use crystals too, like Andrea. I'm big fan of charging your crystals, programming them, cleansing, clearing, charging, programming, and getting them to work for you. I think they just are an awesome tool, and they really do boost your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And which came first for you? Was it crystals first and then the cards, or both? Or which one came first?
Dreams first, and then on a vacation in Wisconsin, I found crystals. So I'd have to say crystals second, and then cards third.
Okay.
And I was just thinking about cards, you know, when you're psychic, especially as a child, and you start telling people things and they're true, and they're like, how do you know that? And then you start thinking, well, how do you not know that? But, you know, or you give people advice and they're like, how did you know that? Or insight, like my whole life. And they're like, how do you know? How do you know everything? How do you know? And it's just, well, if you're tuned in, you know, right? Like not every time, but a lot of times. And I think with the cards, it's easier for people to say, oh, the answer's in the cards, right? If I tell you something and it's right and I just tell you, they're like, well, how did she know that? She must have just guessed. But if you show them the cards, they'll be like, oh, well, the cards said it, so that's right. So it's kind of, I think the cards and the pendulum are also a way for the viewers or the person you're reading for to give you more authenticity because they can see it too. They can
Right.
see the cards you have and they can see your pendulum moving. I think it's easier for people to digest versus, well, how does this person just know stuff?
Right. I think yeah, there's a lot of and it's that it is that, the human side of us that wants to see it, wants to, have something that we can actually see, feel, hear, touch ourselves, not just take someone's word for it. Yeah.
And for me too, it's also validation. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always tell people I use the dowsing rods, but I use cards when I read for family, when I read for, I don't use it a lot on the channel, but I use it because I'm biased. I want everything to work out for my daughter. I want everything to work out for me. That's a bias. So I need to use cards or something to, just give me that little extra validation because I can definitely be biased. So Karin,
yes,
yours is, to me, it's baffling how people can do astrology because there just seems like there's so much to it. And it is like another language. When I hear people talking about, the house and this is in this house and this is, it sounds like another language. And it is one of those things where I'm like, I'm just going to have to take your word for it because I don't understand.
right.
How do you
Right.
know? But so Karin, but tell me how you came into astrology and then what you love about it.
Well, I had a kind of an isolated childhood, so I didn't know whether I was psychic as a child or not, but I felt very close to Jesus and Mary and the saints, and I could feel their presence, but I thought it was just, I was being a good Catholic girl. And I didn't realize that not everybody could feel that stuff. But I came into using astrology when, as many of us do, when we're in a personal crisis, we make this giant leap of growth. You kind of have to, your guides are poking you in the butt. And I was going through a divorce. My son was only 9, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I had some pretty wacky ideas about what I was going to do. And a good friend of mine said, you need to get a reading from, it was a sister of a good friend of hers. And she said, she's very gentle. She's very psychic. She's very positive. And you need some clarity. So I said, okay. So I called and made the appointment. I went for the reading and I was like, how do you know that stuff? How do you know that stuff about me? My friend must have told you. She said, no, your friend didn't tell me anything. As soon as I heard your name, I remembered who you were in past lives. So apparently I had been connected to her before. So I started to go because I'm sorry, there's allergies. Ugh, really.
Oh, I have the same
cloudy
thing.
But so it was mystifying to me, and I was going through a lot of chaos in my life at that time, and so I kept going back, and she would gently, try to put me back on track, and finally it got to the point where it was like, I didn't want to know how she did it. I wanted to do it. And so she sent me a reference book that had been written by her guru about astrology. And I was using that as a reference book, trying to figure out my own chart. And then I said, well, I'm going to learn it. And as soon as I said that to my family and friends, they all decided they wanted me to read their charts. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just learning how to do this. No, you have to read my chart. So I asked my teacher, I said, why are all these people asking me? She said, well, they're recognizing you from the past. They're recognizing your authority as an astrologer. Well, I didn't recognize it for decades, but anyway, I took the class at the temple. I learned from her for as long as she could teach me. I learned from her. which was wonderful because she taught me how to say things to people, how to present things to people, how to look at a certain issue in the chart and how to interpret that for the person that was sitting across from me. And then I took the 2-year class at the temple, and we were required to have 2 charts at class. Well, I'd have like 5. And people were looking at me like, whoa, why has she got 5? I said, everybody wants me to do their charts. I need help. So they're all here. We're all working on this together. So it was so fortunate because when you do it that often, that's how you learn it. Mm-hmm. You're doing it over and over and over again for all these different people. I worked in a retail store in the 90s, and I was not very good at retail. So I had to ask my coworkers a lot for help. And I started feeling bad about it because I thought, I'm never going to get good at this. I can't really help them. So I mentioned to one of them, I said, well, I do astrology. Well, they all signed up for readings. So now I had a laboratory of like 24 people that I was working with. I was there for almost 7 years, that everything that was going on in their lives, they wanted to know what was happening in their chart. Where are my moons today? It's just your moons. Okay. It feels like I have a lot of them. So I would look, and I was learning and learning and learning. So it was just wonderful. It was really, really wonderful. The past few years, I've started to look at the chart the way I was trying to in the beginning. When I was first learning astrology, I was trying to do astrology like other astrologers. You look at all the planets and how they interact. You look at the houses and you're trying to not miss anything. But I kept looking and almost seeing things behind the sheet of paper, with the planets plotted on it. And I complained to my teacher about it. I said, there's like a veil. I can see these things through the veil, but I can't really tell what they are. And she just smiled and said, don't worry about it. You'll get it. And it took me a long, long time until finally after COVID, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to read the charts the way I've been wanting to since the beginning. And which is what I do is they're more spiritual readings. It's like I look at the symbols and I put them together a different way so that I can see what that person's life path is, and what they're here for, what their purpose is, what they're trying to accomplish, what their mission is, and what seems to get in their way. And I started to do that a few years ago, and it's just exploded. I've got lots of people that are coming to me for that. I'm so grateful because it's like I finally found my métier. I finally found the thing. I can read a chart the way other astrologers can read a chart, but it's hard for me to shift into that mode again, because now when I look at the chart, I'm looking at these symbols and I'm putting them together and going, okay, so she's a healer, she's a teacher, she's, he's a leader. This person's a warrior. So it comes out differently than other astrologers will do it. And I have to make sure that people that are coming to me know that that's what they're going to get if they get a reading from me, is that kind of a reading.
And with, I always think about when I hear astrologers talk about the stars and the planets and the movements and everything, I always see it very symbolic and it kind of, what do I want to say? It mirrors nature. It mirrors our physical body. It mirrors a lot of things, the way the planets move and interact with each other.
Right.
And so it's, to me, it as confusing as it is to me when I hear something, I'm like, it makes my brain hurt. But I feel like it's so clear to me that it's meant to be read, that the stars, it's meant to be read because it's so interactive we're so connected to it in such a personal way, right?
Right. Well, I think it says in the Bible that, things are thrice compounded. So when you see things mirroring each other like that, first of all, it just makes me grateful for the Creator. And the second thing is that everything is working the way it should, or if it's not, it's trying to show us something.
Mhm.
And it gives us a perspective. It gives us a way to look at where we are and why things are happening the way we're happening. The United States has an astrological chart, as well as individuals. So when you have that tool of perspective, it just helps people it helps me understand. I hope that I can help my clients understand this is where you are in your life. This is why it's happening. This is when it started, and this is when it will end. That's the math part of astrology, is that it'll show you when something most likely started, and it'll show you when it most likely will end. And without that, a lot of us would be in despair, I think. When is this going to change? And usually astrology can pretty much clear that up.
Yeah, and I like that about astrology, because at least for me, I find timing is one of the hardest things.
Yes.
And so but listening to astrology, they're very very, very accurate about this is moving out at this point, so we'll be back in everything will be back to normal at this point. So right. But yeah, I agree with that. It's very it can be really, because it is so detailed, it is very, so the accuracy is sometimes just amazing.
Well, that's one of the things that I really like about it. When somebody comes with money problems or wanting to have a baby or buy a house, and to everything there is a season. There's a good time to do it, and there's a bad time to do it. And the chart will tell you when you're right in the middle of a bad time. Stop trying to do that. You're hurting yourself. So here's when there's a better time. And guess what? Here's why this is a bad time.
Right.
Which helps, I think, the client feel more empowered. Like, oh, okay, I see how this happened. And now it's not just a message that doesn't have any perspective or place for them. It's just like, oh, I see. So this was building up to this point, and then this happens, and then it starts to dissipate, and we can build something else. So I think it's very empowering for people to hear things like that. It's not happening to you. You're co-creating this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that exactly, the empowering is the word. That's exactly right. And I want to ask you ladies one quick other question, and then I want to get to the chat, because everybody's dying to get in on this conversation, and they're loving. I mean, they're just basically singing your praises in the chat. Everyone's like, "I love my reading with Lori, and I love Karin makes it so understandable." And so I wanted to get to the chat, but I do want to ask you guys about the question of trust. Trusting your tool, trusting what you're getting. I think that is one of the hardest leaps for people. And this is what I wanted this show for, was to inspire people to go out and find their tool if they haven't found it yet, or to try something new. Because like we said with you, Andrea, you were doing cars, and you were and so great at it. And then you add in the pendulum, and boom, you've got this whole other layer happening, and a whole other extension to help you build your own faith and your own, it builds it one more time, because you've got another tool to work with. So we'll start with Andrea again, and then maybe Karin and Lori, and just talk about that, what that felt like for you, what it feels like to trust. I always feel like it kind of feels like a surrender, almost like a leap. It does feel like a leap of faith sometimes. You just have to, I'm just going to trust it. I can't, I'm not going to go there. So what is your, how do you
So when I was younger, and I would, much like Lori, dream things and they come exactly true, or have a premonition or something and it comes true. Like I already trusted myself in the information I was getting for decades, because it was happening with me without me trying. I wasn't trying to ask for answers. I was just getting things, random things, and so that trust is there, and you can feel when something, most often you can feel, is this something that my human brain is thinking, or is this a divine connection I'm getting and an answer? It feels a little different, right? There's less question when it feels right, when it's divine connection. There's less doubt. And also when you're reading, you might get an answer, but it's not going to come true for 2 or 3 years. That doesn't mean you were wrong. Like if someone says, well, you said this was going to happen and it didn't. Like, well, yet. It may not have happened yet, or it's going to happen, or you've seen a part of the story that doesn't make sense yet. Like, don't doubt yourself. Just keep pushing and trying to figure it out. But you really got to stay open. And I love what Karin was saying, and that's what I really want to get through, is that make it yours. So Karin hit her stride when she made it hers, right? Don't force fit your tools into what someone else is doing. It doesn't work like that. You will keep banging your head against the wall because it's not, you have to be authentic to yourself. So what works for me? Is it the pendulum? Is it the cards? Is it meditation? Is it drawing? Is it astrology? And if it is those things, what's my twist? What's my way of doing it? Don't have someone else tell you how to use your tools, because that's that's not being in touch with yourself, right? You might hear something, smell something, taste something as you're using all of these tools, and you have to trust. And if you're doing it for the right reasons, it should be happening, right? Like, if you don't want to read on something that's vengeful against someone else, right? That's not the purpose of this. And anytime you do that, I don't think you'll get the right answers. If you are trying to help people, whether it's reading on politics to make people feel at ease, or reading on someone to help them with their money matters, if you're doing it for the right reason, it feels right. And sometimes I'll throw cards and it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, what is this? And that can be, and I get it with the pendulum too. You're not supposed to ask right now. You're not supposed to know right now. And that's okay too. Maybe you're not supposed to know right now, or you're not supposed to tell the person the answer, because maybe they're supposed to find out themselves.
Right. And not to bring politics into this, but the pipe bomber. Every time I read on the pipe bomber at the Capitol and all that stuff, and I just think, I guess I'm not supposed to know, or there's a shield up there for me right now, or it's not there for me yet, or whatever. Yeah. Interesting. And then, and so Karin, for you, where did that trust in the tool, where does that come from?
It did take a long time, but I got into the habit early on that I would ask my lineage and I would ask my guides before I read for anybody. I'd say, okay, please let me tell them what they need to know. Let me be clear. Let me be kind. And so I'm opening up to their guides as well as mine. And sometimes if I was giving them a message that I was supposed to hear, my head would buzz. You know, my hair's been standing up for many years. I've been wearing it. But there were times when it was like, wah, and it was like, okay. I'm telling them, and they're like, and you too. So the attitude of asking beforehand, you know, that you're getting the highest information you can. I think the attitude of being in service. I'm doing this as a service. I'm doing this as a service for the deity, for the greater good, for you know, anybody that's trying to lift out of whatever state that they're in. I'm trying to be of service. So those are the kinds of things that that helped me. And then when I'd get that buzz, I'd be like, okay, I'm not imagining that, because whoa, I feel like my finger's stuck in a socket. So so that would be confirmation. Yeah.
Right. And what about you, Lori? That idea of trust in the tool, trust what you get.
You know, you have an agreement with your guides, and one is to tell the truth and to keep yourself in the light, tell the truth, don't vacillate from the truth, or they won't help me give the message. And I also ask them very clearly if I have something to tell them, which is when there's adversity ahead, to help me understand how they can best navigate through that. So to get the challenge, to present them with the challenge. But so I just really feel that it's, I can't vacillate from the truth in any way. And the best is going to come to light if I stay in that. And the other thing I had is that, like, when you hear, tell her not to put ketchup on everything, you have to just go with it, because it's not going to make sense to me. I didn't know her dad used to tell her not to put ketchup on everything. You just you hear your God voice, and you just whip it out there, and you know that it's going to make sense to the person you're reading for.
Yeah.
Even if it hasn't happened yet, when you're seeing or feeling something that's coming up for them. So it's if you stay in the truth, your guides stay in the truth, and then you're in the truth Zen lane.
Nice.
And something that I found it's surprising when I started, especially when I started to read for other people, something that would happen, and I want to warn people in the chat, and maybe you guys can attest to this as well. When you're doing a reading and you're in that flow and you're in that space as a reader, there is something that happens where it's flowing, and you're saying stuff, and it's just coming and coming, and then you'll be done with the reading an hour later, and then you'll start to, that's when, at least for me, that's when I start to doubt and say, why did I say that? Is that right? Or why would I say that? Why would I think I would know that? And that's when the doubt comes in, is later on. But when you're in that space, there is something about it that's it is like magic. But once you step out of it, your human self wants to come in and pull it apart, because that's what we do as human beings. We look for the holes, and we look for the, and so I think staying in that space beyond when you're in the midst of doing the reading, staying in that space beyond that is something you have to learn. At least I had to learn to do that, and just say, nope, I'm not going there. I got what I got. I'm leaving it there. The trust is not just in that reading space, but it's afterwards, because that's when I would go into that. Well, why did I say that? Or that's weird how I knew that, but why did I know that? That human part comes in, and you got to move away from it. You have to just kind of, again, it's a surrender for me. It always feels like, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to move into gratitude and say, thanks for being there for the reading. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And that's your left side rationalization or justification. Like you have that left side of your brain wants to rationalize everything. And you can't do that with
that's absolutely ability. Right.
And everyone is psychic, and we're all completely still learning. I mean, that's one thing I really wanted to stress. I learn something from my students. Each time we get together, they point something out, and I'm like, oh wow, I haven't thought about that for a long time, or I need to go look that up. So we're still learning,
Absolutely. Every reading, I learn something. Every reading, it seems like there is something I learn, and that will help me in the next one, and in the next one. Yeah, it's absolutely a process. All of us are. If you're in learning mode all the time, because it just it's such it's big. it's big.
Speaking of tools, when did you start drawing, Kim? When did that come to you as a way?
Yeah, that came because when I first started the channel, I was asking questions, and I would have these long meditation sessions where I would sit there and meditate and then get the answer. And then I would come back onto the channel and say what the answer was. But I felt like I wanted people to see the process in front of them. I wanted them to see it happening in front of them. And that way I could also explain what's happening. Mm-hmm. I really, from early on, I wanted to demystify this, because I felt like so many people have a misconception about what this is. It's not just magic, and it's not just, the chosen few. It's all of us all the time, everywhere. And it's just a matter of recognizing it, or finding the tool that will give you that link in that you need, or whatever. But we can all do this. So having them watch the process and being able to explain it while it happened became very important. And now I clearly know it was my guide saying, this is your avenue. This is where you could really help people to understand what's happening, and that this isn't just like a magical thing. But that's how it happened for me. And it just worked. I saw other readers that did it, and I thought maybe that would work to get me in that meditative state really, really quickly. And
Right.
it really, really did. And then sometimes the pictures mean something. Like I'll pick it up. What one I think I've talked about with you, Andrea, is I was sketching and sketching and sketching, and this woman starts talking about her garden and gardening, and I show her the picture. I'm like, does this mean anything to you? And she's like, that's my garden. It was literally like in rows. It was like little fruits. I mean, I did not know what I was doing. So sometimes they can actually mean something. And that's how out of it I am when I'm actually, or not out of it, but that's how unaware I am about what I'm actually, doing on this level. I'm at a different, like I'm in another consciousness when I read. So
that happens. I don't even remember readings when I'm done.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know what I said. I might remember parts of it, but it's hard because your mind is up there using another set of frequency. It's not in the 3D. But you're trying to communicate to people, the viewers, but you're over here up there.
It is. It's a shift in consciousness for sure when you're getting in that reading mode. And okay, so let me go to the chat and see if people have questions for you, lovely ladies. And thank you again for being with us on Sunday, everybody in the chat, and Andrea and Lori and Karin, thank you so much. And we've got a lot of readers. You've got Marcy from Spirit Made Me Do It, and Kevin I saw in here, the Healing Medium, and Terry was here from Holding Your Space. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to go down. I'll go down to the bottom. So if you guys have any questions, please ask.
Well, talking about tools, I think people really can resonate with astrology because they can literally see the stars in the sky, right? So they know that that's factual, right? They can see the sky. And if someone is reading the stars and showing how things worked in before, and that maybe this could happen again when Saturn comes around, or what, I don't, Karen, I don't know astrology.
No, that sounds good.
I wish I did, but I think that's something, and it doesn't seem so woo-woo or scary or anything because they can see the stars. But if we start saying, oh, I'm hearing somebody say don't put ketchup on everything, like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
Right. Or if I was reading for someone and I smelled cigar smoke and I said, did your grandfather smoke cigars? She's like, yeah, because I could smell it, and there's no smoking here where I am. So
Right. And James is saying, I feel called to work with angels. About once a week, I draw an angel card. I've gotten Archangel Michael 5 or 6 times. And that's the other thing, right? I think we all probably agree with this, is that sometimes your tool comes to find you, or sometimes your tool calls you in. And so listen to that. And try it, try different ways of connecting with angels, whether it's through angel cards or through a pendulum or something else. And clearly Archangel Michael is a connector for you, and so there's some kind of connection there. And so I say, yeah, right, if you feel drawn to something.
And you could, like, people read tea leaves, or they may sit in the middle of a forest and get a bunch of answers because they're surrounded by trees. Like, your tool could be literally anything. So don't let anyone tell you it's not, right? Like, we're all unique. Our connection will be unique. And if you use cards or pebbles or whatever it is,
right,
or look at a glass of water and see the future, that's great. And
don't be afraid to experiment, right? This should be fun. It should be fun and light and And I always feel really joyful. Like if I work with orbs, I feel really happy and joyful afterwards. And whenever I do a reading, I feel really uplifted. It feels good. And so when you have that connection with something that makes you feel good, follow it. It's telling you something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say to James, just try either different angel decks or different essential oils that are connected to different archangels, and see what you experience and see how you connect or you don't connect with it, and don't get discouraged. Just keep trying.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I would hope that you want to connect with that angel and be very direct with your angel, your spiritual guide. And if you ask for, if you just say, well, show me a sign, that's just, it's like, are you going to recognize it, or are you going to say that's coincidence? So ask for something specifically, like, show me a pineapple. If I'm right about this, could you please show me a pineapple? Every time I see a pineapple, and make it something that isn't, like in Florida, you're not going to choose an alligator. You're going to choose some sort of northern bird, or something that isn't something that you see quite often. So if you're very specific and you speak right to them, they'll work with you. And everybody sees the future in their dreams, is something else I really wanted to say. We're no different than you are. You see the future in your dreams just like we do. And that's why you have feelings of deja vu. So
that's right.
It's because you dreamed it. It's because you dreamed it, you saw it, you went there, you traveled there. And then, so it's really important to start using crystals like blue kyanite and start thinking about your dreams when you wake up, so you don't switch right into that busy mind, and you take time to write your dreams down. Ask your angels to talk to you in your dreams.
Right.
That's a great, because you're open for business, right? When you sleep, we're all kind of open in a way we're just not in the daytime because of, like you said, that busy mind with a million things to do. It's, especially if you're not, all of us do readings. So we're kind of in that mode at some point during the day, but anybody who's not, they are just kind of going through their life and going from one activity to the next, one thing to the next, and you don't slow down. You're right. Your dreams are a great place to get information. I have a lot of visitation dreams. You connect with your loved ones. I mean, it's absolutely, we're open in a way we're just not during the day. So CC Ryder asked the question, when you guys were first introduced to your guides, how did you know they were authentic and not false entities? How did you test your guides to determine that they were not an evil force?
It's either a loving message or a fearful message. There's only those two truths. You're either emanating and coming from the light and love, or you're coming from doubt and fear. And so if it's anything that creates hesitation, fear, or a sense of uneasiness, it's not from the light and love.
Right.
It's either or.
I think that's so true, Lori, because even when you get, I remember getting messages about the pandemic and getting messages about certain things that were coming. It was still given in a way of, this is coming, but don't worry, because this. It was always given in a very loving, hopeful way. It was never given in like, the sky is falling and everyone needs to run. And it never, ever comes in like that, even though we have lived through some of the most chaotic, times in memory, scariest times in memory. All of the messages have always been hopeful, loving, giving direction, giving help. And I agree. And it's also a feeling too. I mean, I'm an empath, so I feel a lot, but I think for everybody, there's a feeling attached to it. Does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel bad? It's not brain surgery, right? It's what makes you feel good, what makes you feel not so good, what makes you feel joyful, what makes you feel not so great. Feel it. You can feel it. But what about you guys, Andrea and Karin? How did you know that you were talking to beings of light and not something else?
Well, I think for me it was being connected to the Kriya Yoga lineage. So I felt that I was protected because I was connected to the lineage, and I still feel protected by the lineage. That was a big thing for me, because apparently in other past lives I got caught up with some other less than savory entities. And so that was one of the reasons why I picked up the whole psychic spiritual path much later in life, because of past life consequences. So I feel like I'm connected to the lineage, and I feel protected by the lineage. But I think your tip, Kim, about the feeling, I mean, something might look good on the surface, but there's some kind of creepiness underneath, and then that's a warning. That's, you need to keep that thing out.
Right. And I've heard you guys all talk about, especially in kind of the earlier stages, that intention. What's your intent? I always tell people, if your intention is to call in creepy, evil spirits, that's what you'll call in. If it's to call in the good and that's where you are, that's what you'll call in. That's what you're aligned with. It's your intent as well. So check your intention. What's your intention? What are you trying to do? And that's so much of it. And what about you, Andrea?
It's an interesting question when you were first introduced. So like I said, being psychic as a child and being connected, and like I felt like I never questioned it. My psychic gift was like an arm or a leg. Like you didn't question, how come I have an arm? It was just there, right? It was part of me. And example, like to show me things and dreams and stuff that were coming true, and to give me premonitions and let me know things, both good and bad, that were going to happen. I just trusted that information and where it was coming from, because it was always right. And then there were times where it physically pushed me back into safety, like, so not to be run over by a car. Like a physical force pushed me back that was not there, that I could see, right? And you don't forget that kind of thing. And if you're already in tune, what it was something else. So I feel like those things were always around me, and I never questioned them. I never even asked what they were. It was just part of my package. Like so that I really like that it first introduced, so that I don't know if I ever had an introduction. I just know that they're there, and I'm learning more about it now. That's what I would say. I'm still a little kid learning more about it now. I've learned more in the last few years than I knew, or even I never looked into it before, I think is what I'm saying. I'm looking into it now. Who am I talking to? What am I connecting to? I never asked that before.
I think too, with when we're talking about, when you read, especially when you do mediumship, you can run into energies that you could conceive of as being, oh, that's negative. But really all it is vibrations, right? Lower vibrations, higher vibrations. And so I always tell people, when you feel something that doesn't feel like, oh, that feels weird, or that doesn't feel great, or whatever, put your detective hat on and go into it and see, what is this? What am I really feeling? And so often especially in a medium reading, I'll be like, oh, this person feels shame and guilt. I swear those are the heaviest vibrations that I feel. But you move into it and you're like, oh, I recognize this. Feels like a gut wrenching, like sadness or shame or guilt. And if you move into it, you realize it's actually something very human. I feel, and it's just my own opinion, but that the densest, darkest, most low-level energies are here. They're on Earth. We see them in people. That's that. Once we're out of the body, we raise. We kind of leave all that stuff here. But that's the lower level dark. If you want to talk about dark energies and dark, it's people that are here. It's not the other side. It's not beyond the veil. That's not. And when we feel those things as readers, a lot of times they're conveying things they felt as people. It's not necessarily even how they're feeling now. It's how they would feel, or what they wanted, or if they're saying they're sorry for something they did as a person. But yeah, put your detective hat on and move into it and figure out what it is. Because most of the time it's just a lower vibration feeling or energy they're trying to get across to you. But yeah.
Human rather than demonic.
Yeah.
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 But there is evil energy. Evil does exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it smells. So if you start, it smells.
Oh dear.
It smells like sulfur.
Oh.
It does.
Okay.
If someone has an attachment, or if someone leaves your building or leaves your, I had a metaphysical store, so if someone had a healing and they left, and you can smell it. Definitely smell it. You can feel it, you can smell it. And then you can sage, and you can say all negativity is free to go to the light. Only the bright, white, loving light of Jesus Christ is allowed here. So, or your higher connection.
And that, I'm glad you said that, Lori, because that kind of leads us into the next question. What do you do all to cleanse yourselves vibrationally? I'm a prayer. I use a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation.
Yeah, I cleanse everything in the name of the Creator, and then if you still kind of wondering, I have heard, and Lori's just said it, saying the name of Jesus Christ is one of the strongest things you can say to get rid of bad energy. That's a powerful name to say. And you can ring a bell. Ringing a bell can change the energy. Right. You can cleanse yourself with crystal. Like when I'm done reading, or I'm done for the day, or after every reading, I cleanse everything in the house. Like I go through a list of cleanse. I cleanse my computer. I cleanse my body. I cleanse my crystals and cards. Like I just cleanse everything. But I say it now. Before I used to do sage and things like that. But I've connected, I believe, into an energy field that I can cleanse by saying it. Sure hope I'm right.
And I think, when I've read on the political readings, when people have me like, well, how does Donald Trump feel right now? How does it? That's when I feel like I can feel those dark, dense, really heavy energies. And almost always after like Thursday Night Live, things like that, I'll sage, or I will, take a minute to just let it kind of lift from me and let it go, because you can, those dark, really dense, people energies, when they're in those states of being, like you said, Lori, with these kind of whatever's traveling with them. I don't know. I don't want to know, but there's something that's around them clearly that is kind of a darker, energy. When you move into those, it's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And so, Lori and Karin, what do you guys do to cleanse yourself or make you feel good after readings or before?
I'll do sage. I'll shower. I will also, I keep a nice chunk of black tourmaline in front of me. So if the person is really starting to go off edge, or I'm starting to feel like they may have a little bit of an attachment, or they're really going down into a dark place, I'll hold it, and I've got black jet here and selenite. So I usually go to the obsidian, the black tourmaline, and the jet, and then I will say, and I had an experience just briefly with my daughter that died inside me on my due date, and I went into the light when they took her soul. So for me, it's Jesus. And for me, it's this overpowering thing. Well, I just fell to the ground because the energy was just so huge. And after being in that loving, you can't describe it. So after being in that field where everything becomes one, you can say his name, and evil cannot abide for me. That's right. For me. It may not be for you, but for me, that's what I do. And I'll say that saying, all negativity is free to go to the light. Only the light, bright, loving light of Jesus Christ is allowed here. And then if I really feel icky, if I go to cleanse someone's house, I'll say, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And I'll clap like Andrea said, or I'll ring a bell, and that does it. and that's it. And it's never failed for me. It's never
Right.
failed.
And I think that's that, and you're saying for you, and I think that's part of it, right? Is knowing that it works. That's the
My
most
truth.
important thing, is knowing that that it works. And what about you, Karin?
There's a couple things, living outside Phoenix, we really don't open our windows or doors for almost half of the year. So when I can, I sage the house or myself. But when I can't, I have some CDs of Tibetan bowls that are playing.
Oh,
And so I'll just blast that CD through the house for an hour. There are certain Kriya meditation techniques that I will do to help move the energy so I can move it up and out. I used to work in alternative health for about 15 years. And so we'd get a lot of people that were coming in that were really sick, really scared, really upset. And I'd be out there on the front lines at the front desk and taking it all in and, trying to comfort them and trying to guide them and buck them up. And so a friend said, you need to cleanse better than what you're doing. So she suggested, and I used it, and it seems to be very effective. I've passed this on to other people. It's so simple. Just have some sea salt in your shower and make a paste with the sea salt and whatever shower gel you're using, and scrub everything that you can reach and rinse it off. And you will definitely feel lighter when you step out of the shower.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that. That's awesome.
Yeah, the salt just breaks up anything that's sticking to you.
And that sound vibration is very helpful.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to try all of these, especially, again, after you watch the news or after, stuff like that, where it's just like, it is as though it's like, it's a layer over you. There's something about it that is so heavy sometimes. But yeah, I love that. Someone's just said sea salt baths are amazing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. So thank you, ladies, so much for this conversation. I think it's so great to talk about the tools that are out there, the tools we can use. I wanted to each have you let people know where they can find you, the services you offer, and I'll put, everybody give me about 5 minutes and I'll put everything down in the chat or everything down in the description so you can find everybody. But Andrea, and anything coming up on your channels too. So Andrea.
My channel name is Lilac Lanteren. You can email me at lilacmessage@gmail.com. I do all kinds of different shows on my channel, and I do personal readings, which I think I'll start up again in September. So, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And Lori?
You can go straight to my website, thewayofpositivechange.com. If you would like to have a reading with me, I'd love to read for you. I have openings starting this coming Saturday on the 26th, I think. So thewayofpositivechange.com, you can pick the day and the time, the length of time, and how you would like to meet. If you want to do Zoom or Skype or Facebook Messenger or FaceTime, whatever modality you want to use. And I also wanted to say thank you, Kim, for doing the Maui Humane Society fundraiser. And I did one last night with a couple of my friends, and Johnny from Tarot's Apprentice and Jen Lynn, whom I know you did the Sedona with her, and Autumn from Black and Orange. And we did one last night for Maui Strong for the Hawaii Community Foundation, where the money, YouTube doesn't keep it, and the foundation doesn't keep a dime, and it goes straight to the people. And the link for that is still up. Is your link still up? Because I told people I thought your link was still up.
Yeah, my link's up. Okay. It's up for a week. So yeah, we did ours for the Maui Humane Society, right. But we did also put Maui Strong in the description so people could do that one as well.
Okay, great. I told people I thought your link was still up.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And Karin.
You can find me on my website and book an appointment at littlebluelotus.org. The kind of chart reading that you would probably ask for would be the natal chart reading, which would be the spiritual chart reading. And I have a little baby YouTube channel called Little Blue Lotus Astrology. I'd love to see new people and hear what you have to say about what I'm talking about. And I think, Kim, I'm just so thrilled that you had us on today. That was really, really big fun. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad you mentioned your channel. I didn't know you had a channel. So
Oh, it's a little
there
baby
you go. Everybody will go there now. Oh, awesome. Oh, well, good. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, everybody in the chat. Sharon Sight, you're a rock star. Thank you so much for moderating without being asked to. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.